again thank Neil for the tech support that he's offering to me today. Thank you so much, Neil. You are absolutely awesome. Thank you to Natalie from OISE, who's unfortunately unwell and can't be here today, but for her invitation and for all the hard work she does as well. And a big thank you to all of you for making the time in your busy day to give some time to learning together. It's a privilege and an honor to be with you here today as a partner in learning. So just looking forward to your expertise and wisdom. And I always leave inspired from these workshops because there are so many mentors who just give their time generously and are so hungry to develop their skills and practices. So thank you. I'd like to begin by asking you this question. Think back to a time where you had the best conversation ever. Just think back to a time where you had the best conversation. And if nothing comes to mind right away, perhaps a conversation you witnessed either in a movie or through a book or at work or at home. And think about what made it so great. What made it so memorable? So take a moment to think about that, please. See, conversations, whether good or bad, they stay with us. They stay with us because conversations are really at the heart of relationships. They are the foundation. In fact, the quality of a relationship is often determined by the quality of the conversations within them. And so that's why at OISE we're really eager to develop our practice in our ability to have these meaningful, impactful conversations that support our mentees in their learning journey. So Anil is going to help me set up a poll. And the question is pretty much asking us, how confident do you feel in having meaningful conversations that spark curiosity, cultivate growth, and make your mentee feel heard and valued? So there'll be a drop down that comes up really quickly. Oh, there it is. So 1 meaning not at all confident and 5 meaning extremely confident. The purpose of this poll is just to get a check of where we are as a group of mentors. This is not a judgment at all. This is such a safe learning space. We're partners in learning. And it's just good to get a feel of where we are and where we think we are in terms of our conversations with our mentees. And as you complete the poll, I'd like you to think about a small action or a small step that you can take to move just 0.5 points towards that 5. And if you're a 5, what can you continue to do to keep yourself at that 5? So for example, if I'm at a 3, I might say to move from a 3 to 3.5, I would really like to use more open-ended questions with my mentee at the next conversation. So take a moment just to write it down. This will be really good for you to have it with you for your next mentee conversation. Just a small action, a small step that you can take to move a little bit towards that 5. To just sharing a little bit about myself. I'm Sonja Pullen, and I'm a coach and facilitator with a background in teaching and school leadership. I'm currently reading Limitless by Jim Quick. A great book, by the way. I'm passionate about walking alongside and championing teachers and school leaders on their professional learning journey. Just being able to empower them so that they can reach their full potential, so that they can achieve better results and impacts for both themselves and for the students they serve. I'm trying really hard, everyone, to keep my dear plant Freddie alive. I have no green thumbs. And so I'm really struggling with Frederick. I do name my plants. And so if any of you have some good strategies or tips to keeping plants alive, I would love to hear from you at the end of the workshop. I have had some sad failures in the past of killing plants. So that's what I'm really trying hard to do. So look forward to hearing from a few of you who have a green thumb. As I mentioned, this workshop is being recorded and will be shared. Just look out for these symbols. Taking a picture might be really helpful of the slide in terms of if we were in person, I'd be giving you a handout. So they're often slides with a lot of information, but things that you could use down the road. So you might want to take a screenshot or a picture with your phone. Learning goes that little bit deeper when we take notes. So I encourage you to take some notes as we go. And of course, the pause button just to stop and to digest the information and reflect on our learning. Our success criteria, it would be wonderful if you had your video cameras on, as I mentioned, especially for the breakout rooms. There will be activities where you work with a partner. And so to show them respect, it would be wonderful that they can see your face. The note taking as well. And again, just bringing that mindset of a learning approach, a partnership of learning and collaboration, and that growth mindset as we explore how we can, as mentors, develop our practice even further. Our learning objective is to build skills in active listening and powerful questioning to cultivate even more flourishing conversations with our mentees. As a mentor, I found that active listening and powerful questioning are often very challenging, but are very powerful as well. So I thought that it would be two good skills to look at today. So we'll spend a bit of time unpacking and understanding these two skills, and then the real life application, that's where the learning takes place, where you will be with a partner and have different activities to actually practice these skills, and then we'll reflect throughout and at the end as well. So before we begin to the meat of the content, I would love for you to type in the chat, what is the greatest gift you give your mentee? So you might say, it's my time, my empathy, empower and encourage them to reach their greatest potential. Amazing. Thank you, Nicole. What gifts you have as mentors. This is so inspiring. Carol, time, experience, encouragement, multiple gifts. I know it would be hard for you all to pick one gift. I'm a retired social worker with many years experience providing support to people. Thank you, Margaret. Support. Thank you, Susan. Wow, what a collective assortment of gifts. Mentees are so fortunate to have mentors like you. Thank you, Satinder. Inspiration, time, and support. Wonderful. And shout out to Satinder and Dan for seeing some familiar faces. Lovely to see you guys back again. Thank you for being here. And to everyone else, of course. Okay, thank you for that. So moving on to active listening. Before we talk about active listening, I shared this image with you last time, if you were here with our workshop with Lillian that we ran, about this garden and this gate. Just as you look at the image, I want you to think about how this might relate to your mentee relationship. And if you were here last time, maybe you've come up with some different ideas, or maybe you want to develop on the ones you've got that you had from last time. But just have a think, how might this image of a garden and gate relate to your relationship with your mentee? As I reflected on this image, I came up with 5 connections. And you might agree with them, you might disagree with them. Please feel free to share that in the chat. Different perspectives are always welcome, and I love hearing from you. I just may not be able to respond to everyone. So for me, I thought about unlocking the moment, unlocking the gate by being mindfully present and being fully engaged. Then opening the gate to understanding by listening actively. Digging deeper then as we move through the garden, digging deeper by asking powerful questions. And then keep exploring the garden in new areas by staying curious. And of course, celebrating the journey throughout. I find this image really helpful when I have my conversations with my mentee, especially the part of that curiosity and exploration and walking the path together. So active listening sounds really simple, right? Like everyone, we can all listen, but active listening can be quite challenging. And so I'd like to share on this screen, you might want to take a picture of it if you'd like, some of the skills that help us become active listeners. And I'll give you a moment to read this. Lots of knowledge to give, but really allowing our mentee to talk. Avoid making assumptions and judgments, even in our head. Listening to understand, not to speak. If you've been with me over the year, you know that this is my hardest one. Always trying to formulate a question or a response, but really stopping and listening to what is being said so we can understand our mentees better. Taking notes help to track the conversation. Letting go of control, that can be really hard for me because sometimes I feel as a mentor that I need to, know things. And so just to let go of control is really helpful. With the others, I've given you examples, so I'll give you a moment to just read what's on there or take a picture if you'd like. Can you see the screen okay, everyone? Yeah. Skills like clarifying, paraphrasing, summarizing, probing, those are really helpful to when there could be some misunderstandings. And so summarizing it back to them so that they can hear that really ensures that both people are on the same page. And so these are some question prompts that you might want to use. I'll just talk a little bit about paying attention versus noticing. I learned this from Jim Knight on public voice versus private voice, which he attributes to another author. And I've annotated the author at the end there. So public voice is what is sort of publicly accepted. So for example, if you're mentoring a student who's at OISE, who's doing, her or his BEd or MEd, and they have a teaching placement coming up. And so they just finished their placement, you're having a mentorship conversation, and you ask them, how was your placement? Like, how is it going? You have 2 more weeks left. And they might say, oh yeah, it's been interesting. So that might be the public voice. But the private voice, what they really might be thinking is, I just want to give up. I've cried every day on my way home from my placement. I don't think I can do this. So as mentors, to be able to understand what kind of voice are they using? What are they saying and what are they not saying? And that comes from being curious and being able to notice. Another thing I'll mention is the very last one, acknowledging feelings. To be able to actually just say something like, I hear you. Wow, that sounds really stressful. That sounds challenging. That really makes the mentee feel valued and heard. Just those simple phrases can go a really long way. So as we've gone through these active listening skills, take a moment now to pause and to reflect on this question. What's one listening skill you'd like to implement to increase your effectiveness as a mentor? So pick one from the chart that you'd like to implement or that you would like to develop further. And I encourage you to take a moment to write it down. One skill that you'd like to further develop or implement. Awesome. That's enough time. Thank you, everyone. So now we're going to go into our first practice. Like I mentioned, this is interactive. You get a chance now to practice this skill. So this is how the activity is going to work. It's called the strength spotting listening exercise. It's going to be 5 minutes in total. I'll give you a moment to read the screen and then I'll give you a couple of comments about it. So you'll be in a pair. One person will be the person who shares first, so person A, person B. You'll have to keep track of time in breakout rooms. And then all you're going to do as a listener is listen, okay? So you're going to just ask them what's something that you've achieved that you are proud of. It could be from yesterday or from 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. And you just want to get them to keep talking. So if they finish and they still have 1 minute left, you might just say, tell me more about it. What did it feel like? Okay, you can ask an open-ended question. And then at the end, the listener is just going to do one thing. They're just going to say a strength of the person behind the story that was shared. So if someone is saying, I've been waiting for years, I've been trying to become more fit and have exercise as part of my lifestyle. And I'm so proud that in the last 3 months, I've stayed committed to exercising twice a week, even with the busyness of the kids and work and all that's going on in my life. So as a listener, you first will say thank you, thank them for sharing. And then you'll share strength. Wow, I really see your strength of determination and commitment come through. Well done. Okay, so, and then you'll swap roles. And then the person who just shared becomes the listener, and then they'll share a strength. Okay, before we put you into breakout rooms, are there any questions about the activity? You might want to take a screenshot of it in case you get to the breakout rooms and need further instructions. Are we good? This is going to be really fun, okay? Because you're going to be listening, but you're going to be listening for a strength. So make sure to use the skill that you wanted. So if it's listening to understand or taking a couple notes or summarizing, this is your chance to practice that skill. So thank you in advance, Neil. He's going to put us into breakout rooms. Please turn your video cameras on if you're able to, and you have 5 minutes. Candice. Thank you, Dan. Alistair's yoga. Energetic and collaboration, enthusiasm, passion, and leadership. Amazing. Wow. And I truly believe that, and I've mentioned this before, our world will be a better place when we can encourage others by spotting their strengths and uplifting them with our words. They have so much impact. So I encourage all of us to go strength spotting with people around us. When you finish this workshop, whoever's in your home or tomorrow at work, find a strength in the people around you and tell them that strength. It might mean more than you might ever know. Okay, wonderful. So let's move on now to the next part of our workshop. So we'll wrap up active listening with this quote that we have 2 ears and 1 tongue so that we would listen more and talk less. Moving into powerful questioning. There are many types of questions out there, okay? Many types. This is just an hour and a bit workshop. So in the limited time, I've picked 7 that I have found to be most useful as a mentor. And I'd love to hear what you have to say. You might say, oh, Sonja, X type of question is really powerful. So please type it in the chat. I'm always wanting to learn from you and for us to learn from each other. So please feel free to type other types of questions that you have found helpful as well. Celebrate type questions, focus type questions, open-ended, clarifying questions, real questions, which I'll explain to you over on the next slide, grow type questions, and strength-based questions. So these are some of my favorites. Of course, this is not the extensive list, but on the next slide, I'm going to give you examples of each. So I'll give you a moment now just to have a read through this and to take a screenshot if you'd like. I'll talk about a few of them. With open-ended, we know that the opposite of that is closed-ended. Sometimes closed-ended questions can get a bad rep, but they actually do have a purpose. They help to narrow things down, and they have purpose. It's just not always sticking to closed-ended. We often find open-ended questions a little bit more challenging. So a tip is to start with the word what or how. Starting with what or how often opens it up to various responses and to dig a little bit deeper. When we talk about real questions, I learned this from Jim Knight, who also refers to Michael Van J. Stanier about real questions versus leading questions. So a leading question, taking it back to my example of that mentee who is in his or her placement, teaching a classroom, and a leading question would be, don't you think using technology would increase classroom engagement? Don't you think using technology would increase classroom engagement? So that's a leading question because I'm pretty much telling them use technology to improve class engagement. The opposite would be a real question where you might frame it like this. You've thought a lot about classroom engagement. What are you thinking you might do? So a real question is really when you don't know what the answer is going to be. Whereas a leading question, you're, like the word says, leading them to something. So I find real questions really, really powerful and also quite challenging. So keeping that in mind, you might want to explore that a bit further. I won't go through all of them just because of time. And so with this in mind, we're going to take another time to pause and to reflect. Good things happen when we reflect on our learning. What's one question you'd like to use to enhance your impact as a mentor? And again, I encourage you to write it down. What's one question you'd like to use to enhance your impact as a mentor? And I'll keep this slide again for your reference. Called the yes no game. If you were at the workshop last time when I ran this, I remember it being a lot of fun. And so this is how the game works. In pairs, you're going to assign one person as a speaker and one person as a questioner. All questioners begin with the question, what's a hobby of yours? The speaker will talk for 3 minutes and then you swap roles. So it's 6 minutes in total. So you might want to take a picture of this for the instructions. So for example, if I am the questioner, I might ask, sorry, if I'm the speaker, the questioner will ask me, my partner will ask me, what's a hobby of yours, Sonja? And I might say skydiving, love skydiving. And then the questioner might ask, okay, great. Tell me more about skydiving. So tell me more would be an open-ended question. If they say something like, did you go skydiving last month? That's a yes, no question. So the winner is if the questioner can keep the speaker talking for 3 whole minutes by asking them open-ended questions. So questions that do not end with yes or no. Then the questioner wins. The speaker wins if they catch out the questioner asking them a yes, no question. Okay, so the whole point, if you're the questioner, you do not want to ask them questions that end with yes or no. You want lots of open-ended questions like, tell me more, start with what or how. Okay, does that make sense? Thumbs up if that makes sense. Awesome. Okay, so we're a little bit competitive at OISE. Okay, a little bit of competition is good. So let's see if we can get some winners in here. But the whole point of this is to just practice our questioning and practicing, sorry, open-ended questions. So make sure at the 3 minute mark, and I'll put a little note so that you swap so that both people have a chance to be the questioner and the responder. Okay. So, bye, Satina. Thank you so much. So, Neil is going to put us in breakout rooms again, and we will, I'll start the timer now. I was partnered with Candice, who won, like really, no doubt about it. So well done. I hope you all had a chance to be the questioner and the responder. So as we wrap up powerful questioning, I'd like to leave us with this quote. And you can substitute the word leader for mentor if you'd like. A few conversation avoiders, of course, talking too much. In our last workshop, we did talk about the ratio of how much we talk versus how much we listen, and to really be noticing how much as mentors we're talking. We really need to be talking much less than we are listening. Embracing the pause. I used to be so scared of the silence. What do I do? Do I have to say something? Sonja, think of something smart. Say something smart. But there's so much learning that happens in the pause and in the silence, so just embrace it. Um, Trying to avoid living in the advice trap. Michael Banjay Stanier talks about the advice monster. It's really easy for us as mentors to jump into giving advice, but to really holding that back and allowing our questions to bring out the solutions from the mentee. In fact, it's much more effective when they come up with their own solutions than when we give it to them. Asking why questions, we can be a bit careful with this. It can sound threatening, like, why didn't you do it this way? So just being cautious of that. And of course, coming across as being the expert. We have expertise, but not having to be the fountain of knowledge, which is actually makes us much more relaxed as well in the conversation. A quick thing when giving advice, we are mentors after all. There is a time to give advice and to consult. Try phrasing it like, would you like some suggestions? Or Hey Sun Moon talks about approaching it with a sense of wonder. I wonder if you did it this way, how that might impact student outcomes or whatever it is. Research shows that the advice we give is often much less valuable than we think it is. So just take a step back the next time you want to give advice to your children or to your spouse or to your coworkers. And if you really think it will be helpful, then approaching it with asking them first and approaching it with a sense of wonder. So we are in the application part of it. I mean, we have applied some of the skills in little tasks, but we're moving on to the bigger portion of the application, which is where you'll be practicing in pairs this activity. So I'll let you read the screen and then I'll talk about it. In the chat as we reflect just a key takeaway from today. It could be something that you learned, something that you found challenging, something that you'd like to implement in your next mentorship conversation. What are you taking away from? Hopefully there's something that you're taking away from today. If you could take a moment, please, to type that in the chat now. I can do it. Yes, you can. Awesome. Listen more and talk less. Yeah, thank you. And as you're typing that in and reflecting on your key takeaway, keeping the channel open for listening and exchange. Wonderful. Thank you. Work on my questioning, forcing myself to listen and not interrupt. Yeah, thank you. It's so much easier, right, to say than when we have to do it. We all agree with you on that one. Yeah. So as we thank you for sharing that. as we wrap up, there is a Google form, and I'll put the link in the chat. If you have 2 minutes, I would just love to just hear from you. It shouldn't take long at all. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, there's a QR code there, or my email is down there as well. And I'll leave it open for any for what questions you might have. If not, I just wanted to encourage you and thank you for being such amazing mentors and for the difference you're making in people's lives. And thank you for giving up an hour and 15 minutes of your time, which is absolutely huge to be here. So I appreciate you. And I really hope that you were able to take something away from today to implement into your practice. So I'll hang around. If you need to go, have a wonderful evening. And if you'd like to fill that form, I'd greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much, everyone.